you remember when you really started to improvise and think about it and like fall in love with?
It was a different story for different instruments. You know, on trumpet, which was my principal instrument, they had these records called Music -1. Did you ever hear those?
No.
So you could get like the Louis Armstrong band without Louis's track.
Oh, okay.
On
You would know it as Jamie Aebersold play-alongs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it would eventually be for you coming up.
Yeah. My brother also gave me those.
Yeah, of course he did.
And so, yeah, I would go practice with that. Or when, oddly enough, if I was listening to a Blue Note record, it would be a trumpet player. And so I would listen to the trumpet solo. And then when the piano solo came in, I would blow right over the top of that, which is what piano solos are for. I've come to find out over the years. That would be in my room, you know, just listening to records and the Music -1 records as well. On piano, which was different, a lot of what I did was just stream of consciousness playing. I would sit down at an upright piano in my parents' house or at school and just go, like not writing pieces, but just playing and improvising. Soloing on piano came differently. The only way I could play a solo when I first started was to sing it as well.
Okay.
So, and I think that's a great suggestion for anybody, is if you can play what you can sing, it'll probably be more true to your musical core and your truth as a musician than if you learn licks and try to reconstitute those, regurgitate those. That's a famous story about Felix Pappalardi and Leslie West in Mountain. Leslie was kind of a shredder and was playing solos on the first tracks that they were recording, and Felix busted him and said, "Hey man, if you can't sing it, don't play it."
I'm pretty sure Lenny Tristano used to teach that way as well.
Well, and that's why you have you know, like real
lyrical.
Yeah, exactly. So on piano, I used to scat along with my solos, and I could play a lot more doing that than I could just like trying to play a solo.
Yeah.
So all the bands in rock, I called them, I didn't understand what jam bands meant. Now they say jam bands, you know, but Cream jammed, Hendrix jammed, Santana jammed, hell, the Doors jammed.
Yeah, they did.
And, you know, you would hear live tapes of them taking it out in various scenarios. And when I was a bass player in power trios, which I was as a kid, you know, you learn the part, but then in the solo section, you jammed.
Yeah.
Jefferson Airplane was a jam band, you know.
Yeah.
So coming up through rock, it was all about improvising for me.
Yeah.
And then jazz, of course. Classical, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the Mule, though, I mean, when you guys are, it's still what you originally said. It's like whenever there's a solo happening, it's still in service to it never fails to be part of the tune that you're actually playing over, which is, I think, a huge thing. Like, it still maintains, you're not just, oh, it's G7, let me go off on G7. You're still in service to what the tune is.
Mm-hmm. I think that speaks about what you would call storytelling.
Yeah.
And songs are a story, the lyrics are a story. Instrumental music tells a story.
Yeah.
You know, great symphonies are like novels. They're like stories.
Yeah.
And a solo, in my opinion, is also a story. You know, you're not going to go up to somebody and say, man, last Tuesday, I'm going to the theater next week. Did you see that meteor? I mean, that could be a solo, but it would tend to be snippets.
Yeah.
as
Well, they have
opposed
drugs to help you tell stories like that, or drugs to keep you from telling stories like
Well, you can add the word "and" to all of that.
Yeah.
You know, and start to string together a sentence or a thought. I don't like getting too dogmatic about anything.
Yeah.
Because I think happy accidents are the most fun of all.
My parents told me that I was a happy accident.
Uh-huh.
So that me and my siblings, I don't think any of us were actually planned, and now we're called happy accidents.
I asked my parents if I was a happy accident, and they told me I was half right.
Nice.
It's funny that you say that though, about like the kind of the non sequiturs, like, and like what that would be like to tell a story that way and how it can translate to a solo. But I know you'll be interested to hear this, Matt. I was actually just listening to a podcast yesterday where someone was talking about Andrew Dice Clay, where he would try to do a comedy set where he would try to make the audience laugh without making sense, or he would go up and he would try to start a set off with just minutes of silence and see if he could get a reaction.
It sounds like Andy Kaufman.
Well, I could see Andy Kaufman doing that too.
Yeah.
But it's just, it is, obviously there's no rules. Like you can try to do anything with a solo, but I think that it's more about like trying to convey an idea. Like whether the story makes sense or not, you're trying to tell a story, you're trying to paint some sort of a picture.
Yeah, I think any kind of art form, regardless of the technique or the medium, in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, the true mastery is in executing intent.
Yeah.
You know, and having an idea that inspires you and then executing in whatever that medium is and whatever technique you're using, whether it's music or visual art or writing or any of the above. And giving the recipient a chance to hear that or see that or experience that that intent. So in most cases, you can cover that by saying storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, it could just be, I'm going to throw 100 different colored balls at you at different parts of your body to give you a sense of alarm and urgency, you know, and then you just take the balls and throw them and the other person ducks. And did you get my story? Not so masterful, but I'm just using that as an analogy. But how about the journey from feeling calm to feeling slightly alert to being in a full panic to what do you do about that?
Yeah.
That's a story,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so you may fake throwing the balls.
Yeah.
and you know, choose a color that doesn't seem so dangerous.
Yeah.
And then advance to more dangerous colors. And I'm speaking in metaphors now because what freaks me out about really good art, and again, this is all subjective, is I don't necessarily need to get the intent because artists can be cryptic about that, but I need to feel it.
Yeah.
I need to feel that profundity, that depth of like, I'm starting somewhere and I'm going somewhere. And when we get done, I'll have made that exact trip I want to make.
We all went on a journey.
And when you're improvising a solo, you don't really know how it's going to end. I mean, you don't even know how it's going to start 3/4 of the time. I may, know that my solo is coming up in 16 bars and say, well, I could start it this way or I could start it that way, but then I'm not playing the music that leads up to it.
And you missed everything that happened while you were thinking about it.
Or you come up with this great idea and how to start a solo and you do it, but, if you're really, really improvising, you're allowing for inspiration to continue and more happy accidents and things like that.
Yeah.
But, you learn or you aspire to learn how to have an arc to it so that it, when it gets done and you pass the solo to the next guy or you pass the solo back to the vocalist, that there's some integration there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.